Okay, geodecary temple here. So we are going to go through the main types of entities, why it's important to learn some astral self-defense, and I'm going to teach you a blanket technique that I teach all my students. Firstly, it's important to understand that right now in our society, we are very vulnerable to astral influences and astral attacks. Unlike people in the past who knew how to protect their homes, how to wear protective amulets, clothing, how to do protective rituals and cleansing rituals to keep their homes and their auras safe and clean, we don't do that anymore because it was regarded as superstitions and discarded. And the entities are taking advantage of that because they don't care what the current social climate is. They just take advantage when they can get advantage. They are predators. And because our homes, our cities, and even our clothing is now designed to make us open and exposed to those negative astral influences, pretty much every time you go outside of your house, especially to a place where people congregate, so a gig, a concert, a conference, even the underground or a bus stop, there is a high chance that you can pick up something from someone else, pretty much like viruses or fleas travel in physical world. So this is something to be mindful of, because if you don't reinforce your shield, if you don't train yourself for mental strength, energy strength, then obviously in terms of energy defense, you are a soft target, and soft targets get attacked more often. So here are the main classes of entities, and then we're going to go through the main symptoms of how to tell if you're just having a bad day or if it's an astral attack. So the most common type of astral entities that pretty much anyone has experienced at least at one point in their lives are the so-called astral leeches. And the astral leeches are exactly what they are. They are small energy beings that are interested in sapping your energy, sapping your life force. They are not really intelligent. They're pretty much like fleas, astral fleas you can call them, where they look for soft targets, they look for openings, they look for someone who is emotional, traumatized, or just simply going around minding their own business, being in a trance-like state, which our society really promotes and induces. So let's say if you're walking down the street, listening to the music, earbuds in your ears, you are in a trance-like state, you are a soft target. And nobody talks about this, but you're making yourself more vulnerable by creating that separation between your mind and the outer reality. Similarly, if you're tired, upset, if you didn't have enough sleep, you are becoming a softer target than when you're rested and strong. Astral leeches look for people with fresh energy. So if you are going to a crowd of people and your energy is exposed and vulnerable, there is a high chance that someone else who also carries leeches passes them on to you. And there is a very easy way to check if you got attacked. If your day started okay and you felt fine, but after meeting someone or after going to some place, you suddenly feel like almost like you're coming down with something. You have a headache-like feeling, your head hurts, but in a weird way where you feel pressure in your head. Your vision may get blurry, your hands may get cold, and you just feel really tired for no apparent reason, like really, really tired. There is a chance that you caught at least one or a couple of astral leeches, and they're sapping your energy, so they're bringing your life force down. And the blanket technique you're going to learn from this video is going to help you get rid of them every time. Now, a slightly less common type of astral predators are actual entities. They're bigger than the leeches, they're more intelligent, not as intelligent as us, but they have some basic intelligence that can be compared to, say, animal intelligence. Now, these types can cause what is called overshadowing. Overshadowing is not possession, but it does impact the way you feel, think, and see the world. So if you get attacked by one of those, what usually happens is that your mood changes in a very strange way. Suddenly, for no reason at all, you may get depressed, even suicidal, and start getting very weird thoughts in your head that are not compatible with your typical personality. So usually they are nasty thoughts, violent thoughts, homicidal, suicidal thoughts that just never occurred to you before. And out of the blue, you get those voices, or a voice in your mind saying those nasty things, making you feel really bad about yourself. Because if you don't know what's going on, you will be like, what is happening to me? What's wrong with me? Why am I having those nasty thoughts? I must be a bad person. But the truth is, those thoughts have nothing to do with you. They are entity induced. And as soon as the entity is removed, those thoughts and those voices will stop. So if you are experiencing something like that, don't blame yourself. Don't feel bad about yourself, but rather identify the real source of those voices, which is an entity attack, and do your best to remove that entity. If you can't remove it yourself, it's worth getting professional help of an exorcist, of a priest, who can do it for you. Now, a telltale signs for this is, apart from sudden personality changes and sudden weird thoughts that are not congruent with your typical way of thinking and feeling, is also when you lie down to sleep and you close your eyes, you see random scary faces or spiders or some nasty visions that are really random. They're not connected to anything. But as soon as you close your eyes, they're just there. So these are entity induced as well. And it's becoming very common in our society. And if you have experienced something like that, feel free to say so under this video, so other people can also see that they're not alone. Now, with this type, apart from the blurry vision, apart from sometimes strange memory loss and strange personality changes, overshadowing impacts you in negative ways, but it doesn't actually take away who you are. So it doesn't replace your core personality like possession does. This type of energy attacks is more dangerous and more frustrated because the goal of entity is to make you as weak as possible so that you can't fight back. This is why it's good to identify it as soon as possible and take measures against it as soon as possible. So what the entity will try to do is, A, will try to drive you away from other people, from your support circle, so you're completely on your own, by pushing you to say nasty things towards them, or to act aggressively or negatively towards them, to drive them away. So be aware of that, be mindful of that, and override those negative commands. And the second thing that it will try to do is to deprive you of sleep. That is actually its primary target, because the more tired you get, the weaker you get. So obviously it becomes harder for you to fight against the intruder. And it deprives you of sleep by keeping you awake at night by various methods, say night terrors, nightmares, just strange sensations in your body that keep waking you up. Actually, one of my students, who is a human performance and sleep specialist, said that he came across a few cases where he tried everything, and the diet was right, the sleep environment was right, everything was spot on, and the person still couldn't sleep, and they were experiencing the exact symptoms that I'm sharing with you right now. So if you're experiencing unexpected, strange, unexplained sleep problems that nothing seems to fix, look at this source as well. Take it under account. It could be that your sleep problem is entity-induced. With this type, you need to know some basics of astral self-defense. Usually it takes actual fighting. Say, if you know what your astral weapon is, this is what you should use. If you don't, just imagine a flaming sword or a lightsaber and just hit the entity relentlessly until it gives up. Quite often, they don't expect you to fight back at all. So if you do anything to scare it or surprise it or shock it, there is a chance it will leave you alone. But if it doesn't go away, as I said, the best course of action is to ask someone qualified who can help you and remove it for you. The problem with this type is they tend to tug you, aka saying, this is a soft target, go for him or her. And in that case, I would suggest taking a training in astral self-defense and start becoming a harder target. So every time something tries to attack you, you know exactly how to fight it off. This is why part of the Alta Ascendant training is astral self-defense, because it's absolutely needed in our world. Type number 3 is very, very rare, and this is the type that induces actual possession. It's super rare, and so many people who claim that it happens to them actually imagine it mostly because they want to feel more important. Let's say people who are traumatized, people who are under the influence of psychedelic drugs, sometimes the ego starts playing up and they think they have an entity just because their ego wants to feel important. It wants to feel that, something big out there is after them. I know it sounds weird, but for the ego, it's actually elevating. The ego gets a kick out of it. But there are actual real cases of possession. They happened in the past, there were some famous cases, and they still happen today. But as I said, luckily for us, it's very, very rare. These are higher class entities that are very cunning, very intelligent, they're fully sentient, and their only goal is to take over that person's body and act through them. When that happens, that person's personality gets wiped out completely. They won't remember what happened to them. And I've seen that before. It's very spooky. They won't remember what happened before. They won't remember what they've done under the entity influence once the entity is removed. And those entities are capable of horrible thoughts acting through that person. And while I don't have the statistics, it's only my guess, but it is likely that some of the cases of suicides and horrible mass shootings were performed under the influence of that type of entities. Because as I said, it takes over the person, it changes their personality completely, and you can actually see that if you're unlucky to come across such a case, you will notice that the voice changes. Let's say a female voice becomes male and vice versa. Or they can speak a language that the original person didn't even know and act and behave in a very strange way. Quite often with that comes also weird superhuman strength. So if you try to fight them physically, it's really difficult to hold them down. And these cases require an actual qualified exorcist to deal with. In my practice, over the 25 years of me working in this field, I've only seen 2 cases of this happen, so it's very rare and it's unlikely that you will ever come across this, but I wanted you to be aware that something like this exists. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this is because even with the higher type entities, with the possession type, there is usually a short window where you're still aware that something is happening to you. So you can use that window to either ask for help or to fight back yourself if you know how to fight. So awareness is your greatest weapon against this. Now, here's the blanket technique. As I said, pretty much every time you go outside, there is a chance that you pick up some astral leeches and you don't want to bring it home. You don't want to carry them around you because they affect your clarity of mind. Like they can induce brain fog, blurred vision, tiredness, inability to focus. So if you're working on something exciting, something that you love, it can be a very frustrating obstacle to deal with. This is why as soon as you detect that you may carry an astral leech, it's a good practice to get rid of it straight away. And getting rid of them is actually very easy. Find a few moments when you're not going to be distracted. Sit or stand in the middle of the room. I usually sit down, it's just easier. Now imagine a thick blanket thrown over your entire body, going all the way down to the floor and spreading around you on the floor as well. And that blanket separates you from the leeches. Now, the leeches usually choose the area around your head. Not necessarily, it's not 100% rule, but because our head radiates a lot of energy, they tend to lodge somewhere around here. And if you have astral vision, if you have auric vision, you can actually see them in the mirror. This is also something that I teach. So imagine this blanket separating your body from those astral intruders and make it as thick as you can. So visualize the weight over you as it spreads around and you're nice and safe inside. Now, step number 2, visualize soaking that thick blanket in some flammable liquid. So it can be gasoline, it can be clear spirit, fuel, anything, oil. Just make sure that it's soaking wet. And as it's getting wet over your shoulders, just feel that increasing weight on your body. But because that blanket is so thick, that wetness, that liquid doesn't go all the way through. So it's wet on the outside, but inside you're still nice and dry. Step number 3, bring your attention to the corners of the fabric that are spread around you on the floor and set fire to it. And because you've just soaked that blanket in something flammable, that fire shoots up and goes right to the top of your head very quickly. And when this is happening, lift the corners of the fabric, lift the corners of that blanket as it's burning, and drop the entities over your head in some sort of a container, like a bowl. Now bring that bowl mentally in front of you and start shrinking it while raising the temperature more and more. So tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands degrees. And shrink it to about the size of a tennis ball. At which point, imagine there is an opening in front of you all the way down to the middle of the earth. Next, throw this container, and you can use your hand, or you can just imagine, just visualize it, throw this container right in the middle of the earth and close the opening. If you've done it right, what you will notice is that your vision gets clearer, your headachy-like feeling disappears, and your hands become warmer. If it's not the case, you can simply repeat the technique until you get the result that you want. There are no side effects, so you can do it as many times as you like. Many people get results on the first or second try. So it's a good practice to do this technique every time you come back from a place where you suspect you might have caught something and you're feeling a bit off. Another positive side of this method is that you can use it for someone else. You can do it for your girlfriend, wife, spouse, your child, your friend, and they don't need to do anything. They don't need to be trained in astral self-defense at all. You just go through all the steps on their behalf, trap the entities, trap the leeches that are pestering them, throw in the middle of the earth, and just ask them how they feel afterwards. This technique is simple enough that even a child can do this. Feel free to share this video with whoever you feel may need it. Fly high.